Hello and welcome to this presentation about Forbrain, the device that helps you use your voice to boost your brain. I hope during this presentation my voice will help boost your understanding of Forbrain and show the possibilities of this great technology. Forbrain is a device that improves auditory and sensory processing. As you will learn, auditory processing doesn't only affect speech and language, but also attention and memory. Forbrain uses bone conduction rather than air conduction to retrain the way your brain processes information, and shortly I'll tell you the difference between bone and air conduction. The device consists of a headset with a microphone and a dynamic filter. The filter is an important part of the technology, and as you'll see, among other things, it helps sharpen and maintain attention. And I want to maintain your attention as there are 29 more slides to go. Forbrain has groundbreaking headphones to retrain the way you process information. The bone conduction is mediated via a vibrating membrane, which goes just in front of the ear, leaving your ears free to perceive external sounds. Now, this technology is usually used for medical implants or even in military situations and transmission. The dynamic filter is a smart black box which receives and corrects and retransmits sounds in a specific manner without any delay, which makes it a unique technology. I'll talk about that more in a second. The microphone is designed to be highly sensitive to your own voice. All you need to do is put the headphone on your head and speak. Bone conduction. Say hum and feel the bone conduction of your voice. Forbrain emphasizes this vibration. Now with the dynamic filter, here is an example. Here's an extract of The Little Prince without the dynamic filter.
So I lived my life alone, without anyone that I could really talk to, until I had an accident with my plane in the desert of Sahara 6 years ago. Something was broken in my plane, and as I had with me neither mechanic nor any passengers, I set myself to attempt the difficult repairs all alone.
Here is an extract of The Little Prince with the dynamic filter.
So I lived my life alone, without anyone that I could really talk to, until I had an accident with my plane in the desert of Sahara 6 years ago. Something was broken in my plane, and as I had with me neither mechanic nor any passengers, I set myself to attempt the difficult repairs all alone.
Could you feel the difference? We will see in the next slides why it is so important to have both the bone conduction and the dynamic filter. Using Forbrain can improve speech and especially the identification of the different sounds of speech. Our brains have to break down the sounds of language down into different chunks or phonemes, and that is an unconscious process, but one that underpins the understanding of any language. Identifying the parts of speech is also the basis of being able to read and write. And as we've said already, attention and memory can be improved by working on auditory and sensory discrimination, which is the basis of the Forbrain technology. Forbrain can be used to help anyone with their speaking and communication skills, and it can increase confidence in anyone's communication abilities. But here I want to focus on the three main goals of Forbrain: to improve speech and language development, to help those who suffer from some type of auditory processing disorder, and to sharpen attention and memory. Each language consists of its components parts, words that can be broken down into specific sounds. To understand language, one has to be able to break those sounds down and interpret them. Once you've mastered the ability to break down sounds into phonemes and understand what they mean, you can not only listen, but you can read and write too. And being able to create speech also requires knowing the sound that you need to articulate to be understood. If you can't process sounds, you won't be able to articulate them very well, if at all. Listening involves paying attention, and I hope you still are. Poor sensory processing and acoustic input in particular will affect how that input is encoded and then later recalled. And when more brain resources are used to process sounds, that affects other cognitive processes. Difficulties with sound processing will strain attention as you try to decode what you're hearing. Think about it. Attention is much more easily maintained if you can understand the material and it's engaging, like this presentation, I hope. But if you struggle to decode and understand, then attention will be taxed, and it'll be even more difficult to encode that sensory input. Now, I want to make the point here that auditory processing disorder is about difficulty processing sounds, not difficulty hearing them. Usually, people with auditory processing disorders have normal ear structure and function. This difficulty can be a result of things like head injuries or even ear infections, or they can be caused by various neurodevelopmental delays. Auditory processing problems can manifest in a number of ways. There could be difficulties discriminating different sounds, for example, the difference between bat and cat. There can be differences in localizing the source of sounds. Sounds and languages in particular have very specific rhythms that require pattern recognition. That's one of the reasons why people have difficulty understanding a foreign language. They can't recognize the pattern in the sounds that is often different from their own language. This is also impacted by decoding the timing of sounds and speech. And then lastly, there can be auditory processing difficulties when exposed to two sources of sound, or what is called dichotic listening. So, for example, if you're listening to me and watching the TV at the same time, well, you need to turn off the TV. Now, Forbrain can be used by everyone as soon as you can emit sounds, even if it's not words but only sounds. However, children do need to be more than 3 years old. People with hearing aids, yes, they can use Forbrain. People with low or high sensitivity, they can adjust the volume accordingly and carefully. However, this device is not designed to overcome tinnitus, stuttering issues. For people with those difficulties, they can contact an affiliate by sending us an email to info@forbrain.com. The audio-vocal loop consists of 3 implicit skills that are involved with the interpretation and production of speech. We need to be able to discriminate sounds, break them down into phonemes, and produce them with the appropriate rhythm. If we speak in the wrong rhythm, it will be hard for others to understand us. So we need to speak in the right rhythm. Forbrain works by improving sensory perception in all aspects of the audio-vocal loop by sharpening voice perception. By improving the perception of our own voice, we can enhance sensory awareness. And along with the characteristics of the dynamic filter, this will improve attention. The ear is the most powerful sensory integrator. Sound is critical to our perception and interpretation of the world in general. It's actually involved in processing more than 70% of the information the brain needs to be efficient. Because it's the biggest sensory integrator, the ear is also the most powerful brain stimulator. Just remember the last time you had a big cold and your ear was blocked. Imagine how you feel. How did you feel? Not very good. Your ear's blocked. Some of that sensory processing is not as easily available. Or what about seniors whose overall function can deteriorate as they become very hard of hearing? The ear actually starts functioning while we're in the womb, at about 4.5 months, and there's evidence that a newborn baby recognizes the sound of his or her mother's voice from that age. The ear is not just involved in sound processing, however. It's also involved in movement and balance. This makes sense when you think that sound localization is dependent on your own sense of spatial orientation. Block one ear and try to run, and you will see how difficult that is. So to recap, the ear is involved in listening, speaking, vocalizing, attention, energy, sensory discrimination, movement, and balance. With normal air conduction, sound waves are directed by the outer ears through the ear canal until they reach the eardrum. The eardrum passes these vibrations through the middle ear bones or ossicles into the inner ear. The inner ear is shaped like a snail. It's also called the cochlea. Inside the cochlea there are thousands of tiny hair cells. Hair cells change the vibrations into electrical signals that are sent to the brain through the auditory nerve. The brain tells you that you are hearing a sound and decodes what that sound is. With bone conduction, the sound is passed through the vibrations in your head. Those vibrations are passed into the middle ear, bypassing the ear canal, the outer ears, and conduct via those vibrations and thence to the brain. Bone conduction transmits sounds through those bones in the head directly to the cochlea and to the brain. Now, bone conduction is much faster than air conduction, and it's also higher quality sound. It is our first and main perception of our own voice. In fact, prior to recording devices, people assumed that how they heard their voice was how everyone else heard it. But hearing our own voice is a critical step in speech production. Try this for bone conduction. Stick your fingers in your ear and talk out loud. The sensation that you hear, that is bone conduction. Our voice perception is important in our sound production. When we speak, we predict our vocal gesture, in other words, what we say and how it sounds. Our auditory system requests feedback from motor system so we can compare our intention with the reality. Now, this is a critical part of the speech and language process. Obviously, goes on unconsciously most of the time. Forbrain corrects and retrains this feedback loop to be much more efficient. Bone conduction is sensitive to lower frequencies of sound, which can interfere with the audio feedback loop. The dynamic filter minimizes these lower frequencies and emphasizes the mid-range ones. Now, importantly, the dynamic filter subtly varies the frequencies, and this requires the brain to pay more attention. And this is how Forbrain improves attention. And talking of attention, I hope you're still with me. We have about 12 more slides to go. To recap, we hear ourselves via bone conduction. By promoting the medium frequencies that are processed more efficiently, and by varying frequencies to increase attention, bone conduction retrains the auditory process. To recap, the benefits are positive impact on the auditory feedback loop, better acoustic integration of one's own voice, and improved attention and memory. How easy is it to use Forbrain? Very easy, and you know what? It's fun too. It really is. With the headset in place, users read out aloud or even sing. You don't want to hear me sing. We encourage users to sit up straight and practice calm breathing to facilitate the most effective training. There are various exercises, all of which can be done at a clinic or even at home. You can use Forbrain anywhere, except perhaps the public library, where people might not appreciate you singing out loud. but it can be used in the home, and it is very easy and fun to use. Speech isn't just about hearing words. There's several aspects of speech that are important, and these all lead to useful exercises with Forbrain. For example, each language has a certain musicality, so singing what you're reading can actually help with producing and processing that language. Rhythm is also crucial as it determines the break between words and thus the emphasis. Reading poetry, by the way, is a great rhythm exercise. The flow of language is also important, and you can practice this by reading text and taking a deep breath every few seconds at the natural break in the text. Diction is also important, and this can be practiced by exaggerating what you're reading or even singing. Emphasis is critical to meaning, and this can also be practiced by changing volume of your voice every 5 seconds or so. There are several ways you can use Forbrain with young children to teach them language skills as well as to improve auditory processing. You can overlay your voice to guide tempo. You can read along for accuracy. Other applications could involve reading dialogue with your child to give them a sense of rhythm and flow of spoken language. You can even read words out and have your child memorize them. You could even sing along to guide musicality. Lots of things that you can use Forbrain, many ways in which you can use it to train this auditory processing. Now, as far as training times are concerned, during the first training block, which typically is about 6 to 10 weeks, we suggest a session of between 3 minutes and 20 minutes for children, even young children, depending on age and their ability. Between 10 to 30 minutes for adults, also again, depending on the situation. And we recommend a short break of a few minutes, at least every 10 minutes, maybe even less. So just to have a break there. Again, those are the times that we recommend starting out in the first training block with Forbrain. Now, one of the things that we have noticed is that when people become more comfortable with their voice and their speech production, their confidence increases along with their energy. As they become more in sync and comfortable with their own voice and their communication, energy and confidence can improve. Another benefit of Forbrain. Now, for you professionals out there, you can learn more about our affiliation program by completing the appropriate form, which is easily found on Forbrain.com. And you need to have ordered a Forbrain before we can validate your profile, but it's a very simple process once you've done that. Again, go to Forbrain.com and look at the affiliation program and fill out the appropriate form. Now, as far as ordering is concerned, typically that's a 3 to 5 day delivery, 100% satisfaction or your money back within 30 days. Each Forbrain device comes with a 2-year warranty, and payments are secure on our website. Now, if you go to Forbrain.com, there's more explanation and details about how Forbrain works. There are some scientific reviews and evaluations, as well as testimonials, exercises, videos, the contact forms, and the opportunity for online chat. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today about Forbrain, and please contact us if you have any questions whatsoever. Thanks so much for taking your time to listening about Forbrain, and hopefully it has opened your eyes and maybe even your ears to the technology that we believe can be really helpful. Thank you so much.